Order, please. I need a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Actually, roll call. We'll do roll call on that, please.
Ms. Alden?
Aye.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. I need a motion to certify closed session that we only discussed items that were in the enabling motion and only those items that are authorized under the Freedom of Information Act and also in section 2.23711D of the Virginia Code.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please. Ms. Albritton.
Sorry about that. Got a little stuck there. Ms. Alden?
Aye.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. We have one motion out of closed session.
I move we expel student A from Montgomery County Public Schools.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Alden?
Aye.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. And that concludes all the motions out of closed session. The next item on our agenda is honors, awards, and recognition, and this is where the board sets aside time to honor and recognize student achievement and accomplishments throughout the school division. And at this time, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Walt Shannon, Assistant Superintendent. Mr. Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. At this time, we'll recognize Mr. Nelson Simpkins, our Director of Secondary Education, who will introduce our Senior of the Month program.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the audience. One of my favorite parts of our second board meeting of the month is the recognition of a Senior of the Month from each of our high schools. Their individual photos and leadership profiles are displayed on the school presentation boards in our lobby, and I hope you'll take the opportunity to view those. Our presentation format provides a snapshot of each senior in their own words of how they view themselves and the highlights in their high school years. Our principals are here with us tonight to share words from each of our October senior recipients. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you our principals for tonight. Mr. Brian Kitts will lead off, principal of Blacksburg High School. He'll be followed by Dr. Kevin Sears, principal of Christiansburg High School, and Mr. Danny Knott, principal of Eastern Montgomery, will follow Dr. Sears. Mr. Polly, his Senior of the Month from Auburn High School, is playing volleyball tonight and cannot be with us, but she'll join us at a future meeting. Mr. Kitts.
Thank you. Good evening. Nice to see you all. I'm proud to introduce Blacksburg High School's Senior of the Month for October, Miss Emily Crane. Emily is escorted tonight by her mom, Kathy Baker, and sister Paige. Could you all please come forward? Emily says her friends would call her responsible, thoughtful, kind, friendly, and hardworking. Emily's most meaningful and significant high school activities during her 4 years at Blacksburg High School include attending the French Governor's School. There she was able to practice French in full immersion. Emily says it was like nothing I'd experienced before, and my French language skills and vocabulary grew amazingly. Emily says the specific attributes, qualities, and skills that she has developed during her time at BHS include being responsible, independent, and diligent with her work. She says that many of these qualities are due to the numerous opportunities offered to expand learning at Blacksburg High School, such as clubs, extracurricular activities, and Governor's School. She said the skills she developed are also due to high academic expectations. Emily's most unforgettable memory during her high school career was winning a superior rating at the state marching band competition her junior year. She says everybody in the band had worked very hard, and we'd improved so much by state competition that our rating was very well deserved. In 10 years, Emily says she would like the chance to continue in a profession involving French and linguistics. She says Blacksburg High School has high academic standards, which I have adopted into my life. More importantly, BHS gave me the opportunity to attend Governor's School, which has encouraged my love and understanding of the French language, and in turn has opened up numerous other opportunities. Congratulations to Emily Crane for being selected as Blacksburg High School Senior of the Month for October 2012. Emily is an outstanding young woman and is very deserving of this honor.
Big.
Members of the board, Ms. Blackburn, good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Christiansburg High School's Student of the Month, Senior of the Month, Miss Hannah Marlee Duff. She is accompanied here this evening by her father, Scott Duff, her mother, Donna Duff, and her sister, Abigail Duff, and Steve Leist, her uncle. If you all would join me. The following passages are in Hannah's own words describing her experience at Christiansburg High School. My friends would most likely see me as a courageous, sensitive person who often sticks up for my beliefs. My friends would see me as a very honest and open-minded. Also, they would recognize that I am a leader and I love to cheer on many peers and watch them succeed in what is important to them. The most meaningful activity I've engaged in is varsity soccer. Not only are we a soccer team, but we are a family. It has been the most enjoyable experience to become so close to the people I now consider my sisters while playing the sport I love. They have taught me not only how to be a great player, but a great friend and leader. Christiansburg High School has taught me how to become a responsible young adult who can multitask and be successful in many different areas. Many teachers and administrators have pushed the importance of being a part of sports and clubs while getting a great education. This has helped to make me a well-rounded person with great time management skills. The most unforgettable experience I had at Christiansburg High School was being part of Rock in Prevention. A group of CHS students got together with a company that teaches 3rd to 5th grade children how to become positive citizens through song and dance. This was extremely beneficial to the kids, and I found it to be a very rewarding experience. 10 years from now, I hope to be working at a physical therapy office or even owning one of my own. Wherever I end up, I want to be an active community member, perhaps working with kids through a sports club or Girl Scout troop. Christiansburg has given me the skills and education to develop a thriving career and has pushed me to be a part of something essential to making society a better place. I would also like to say, last Friday, Christiansburg High School had two football teams on the field because we had our powder puff game. And on that day, and probably any other day she chose to be out there, Hannah was by far the best player Christiansburg put on the field that day. If you got to see it, she intercepted a pass and ran it back for a touchdown and then scored another touchdown while on offense. She just did an outstanding job, and she's an outstanding student. Hannah.
Awesome.
Ms. Blackburn, Mr. Jones, members of the board, it's my honor and privilege tonight to introduce to you Eastern Montgomery High School's October Senior of the Month, Ms. Hillary Wilson. She's accompanied tonight by her father and mother, Gary and Christina Wilson, and her brother, Trey. If they would come forward, please. These are Hillary's words. My friends would say that I'm friendly and outgoing if I know you, but shy when I meet new people for the first time. They would also say that I would go out of my way to help someone in need. My closest friends would say that I'm a leader that expects the best from myself and my peers, and that I'm competitive and have to win. The most meaningful activity I have engaged in during my 4 years of high school would have to be my service learning class. Every day this semester, I go to the elementary school and learn what it is like for elementary school teachers to teach small children. Even though I'm only there for a short period of time, I see firsthand what these amazing teachers do on a daily basis. This is meaningful to me because I've had the opportunity to work with children that are much younger than I am. I've had to develop patience while working with the children and taking on some of the teacher responsibilities. Because of this experience, I've learned that things I think should be easy are very hard for youngsters just starting school, and now understand how important education is for everyone. During my 4 years of high school, I have developed into an independent person. I've learned to be adventurous and go after what I want. I have also learned that maybe what my friends are doing is not what I want to do. I feel that I have my own mind and I follow my own choices. I feel that taking challenging classes such as dual enrollment, advanced placement, and this year my virtual online class, we've enjoyed that class, haven't we? My virtual online class have taught me time management, organization, and responsibility, and helped me juggle school and my 2 part-time jobs. There have been many unforgettable moments at EMHS, but the one that stands out the most is when I ordered my senior graduation items a few weeks ago. In that moment, it dawned on me that I'm a senior and I'm about to complete this chapter of my life, and I will be starting a new chapter next year when I go to college. I don't know if I would have made it to this point in my life without the help and support of my school, teachers, and family. In 10 years, I see myself as a resident in a medical program. I want to become a doctor, but I am not sure what I will specialize in at this time. I do know that I am looking forward to becoming the best that I can be. High school has taught and helped me so much. The challenging assignments, my friends, the teachers, administration, guidance, and coaches have made me the person I am today. I can honestly say that the teachers at EMHS care about their students. If you have a question with what has been taught, their door is always open and they will help you. EMHS is a small school with only 68 seniors, and I'm honored to call EMHS my high school. We know you're going to do well in the future, Hillary, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe pediatrics is something you look at. Congratulations.
Awesome.
At this time, the school board will take a 5-minute break. It'll give the opportunity of all school board members to greet those who have been recognized tonight. We'll reconvene at 7:45.
I'm not used to sitting that much. I have. But
This looks much better. Whoops, it went off. Pretty weird. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
And Monday night too, so.
It says busy. Take it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there were several big ones. I was
Congratulations. Good job. Watch this athlete play. Red all the time. Good to see her. Good.
Whose birthday?
March is like that for us.
Huh?
We've got a lot of birthdays, and my sister just texted me and said, whose birthday is tomorrow?
Whose is it?
My youngest brother.
Okay, because my daughter's this summer.
Oh,
Oh, and I
really?
wish I were there. She's turned 50.
Wow.
Can you believe that one?
Take care. Thank you.
Wow. 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 50. I can't believe it. And she, huh?
First, the 6th, the 9th,
Oh, wow.
the 10th,
That is big, girl.
the 15th, the 17th, the
Oh,
19th,
my God.
19th,
How do you
23rd.
remember all that?
That's why my sister just texted me and said, whose birthday's tomorrow?
But you remember it.
Oh, yeah.
You're the walking genius, girl.
What?
Oh, great. Huh? I was tired. Why? What were you thinking? Oh, yeah. Baloney. When you spoke at Christiansburg at that
Pay attention.
you got a gift, girl.
Very cozy. And that was-
No, it's
and that
being
was okay.
prophetic. You are a prophetess. You hear me? Say thank you. You're welcome. No, I'm serious. Hey, so how do I make this go up now? Oh. Oh, now I've screwed it.
Next item on our agenda is public address. This is where the board sets aside 30 minutes with a maximum of 3 minutes per citizen to address the board on items of educational interest. And I would call attention to the fact that we do have a timing system that will be displayed on the screens, and please pay attention to those and be cognizant of it, since we have several speakers that are already signed up. First person signed up is Mike Griggs. If you'll please step forward and state your name and address.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Mike Griggs, 602 Kelly Lane, Blacksburg. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys. I'm here on behalf of Harding Avenue with my purple colors, as well as my family. I have 4 daughters, 3 of which who go to Harding at the moment, and I have another one on the way. We have many years together with you guys. The next 15 years, we'll have kids in the school system. So we have an interest, just like you guys do, to better the education system in Montgomery County. Obviously, I'm here in opposition to one of the budget items on the list of cutting Harding Avenue, and we'd hate to see our school go. And a lot of guys are going to talk about more details about that, but most importantly, I want to applaud the board for the extensive measures at being responsible with the budget here and looking at all the opportunities to find places to cut. I think that's great. As I was researching this particular problem over the past couple days, I found, I guess, the biggest problem that I found was the local contribution of funding compared to the rest of the state. And it seems that Montgomery County is obviously, they're committed to education because over half of the money in the operating budget goes towards education. But at the same time, in the state of Virginia, it appears that the funding is 20% below the average of local funding. And if we had half of that, that would be our $4 million to cover our deficit, and we would be, you know, on par with where we should be. If we were on average, we would be in a good state, and we'd be able to provide all of our kids with the proper, you know, everything that we need for a great education. I'm here offering support to you guys to reach out to the community, other people all over Montgomery County, to be able to stand together and encourage our town, or the Montgomery County members, all of the elected officials, to raise the taxes for education and provide the funding so that we don't have to go every year and make drastic cuts, whether it's the governor's school or the programs that these students just talked about. I want my kids, when they in the next 10 years, when they're seniors, I want them to be able to have the same opportunities. And if we have to cut like this every year, it's just not going to happen. But I urge you guys to reach out to all of the schools to stand up and fight for, you know, maybe a revenue increase if that's what makes sense. Just like all the people from Harding are here today. It's unfortunate that one school or there's a few schools that are feeling a squeeze, but this is really a problem across the entire county. Okay, so I'm standing here letting you guys know that on behalf of myself as well as my other.
Mr. Griggs, your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
The next person signed up is Susan Marmagast.
Good evening, Chairman Jones, Ms. Blackburn, members of the school board. I've spoken to you all before. Tonight I stand on behalf of a new group that we have formed called Citizens to Save Our Schools. This is a community effort to stand with you in finding more resources for our county public schools. And so I first of all stand up here to say that I'm standing with you in figuring out how to get more resources into the county for schools. We are an emerging group of parents and citizens to address a significant threat to our county schools. We applaud your commitment to handle this year's budget process early, in a transparent manner, and in ways that engage us as parents and as citizens. Our mission at CSAS is to ensure sufficient resources for Montgomery County Public Schools so that in 2013-14 we don't have to close any school and we don't have to hurt our excellence in teaching and learning. We have three priorities. The first is to close the gap in our budget this year. The second is to keep all schools open. And the third is to look at a school like Harding Avenue, which is a model academic elementary school in this county, and to not close Harding. We are engaging parents across the county in this effort. And in order to do so, the public needs a lot of information. And so I stand before you tonight specifically to ask you for data and analysis and information. We sent you a letter on Thursday evening, and I just wanted to reiterate the points in that letter. A number of you have clearly stated that schools are on the chopping block this year and that you intend to close schools. Harding Avenue or Bellevue and Shawsville Middle are the three that are on the list, in addition to Auburn Middle, but I understand that that is not as much of a significant issue this year. We want to understand what the justification is for putting any school and these three schools on this list. And we ask you to give us, the public, detailed justification for what is the cost savings, what are the additional expenses that are going to come when you have to move kids, and what are the unintended consequences, impact on real estate prices, impact on busing, and also what happens to the future projected enrollment in our county schools, because if we close an elementary school, we're going to be over-enrolled in our strands come a number of years down the road. The second thing we want to do is we want to understand the mechanism you're going to use to close schools. Are you going to redistrict within the strand? Are you going to move kids permanently to a new school? Or are you going to move them for a couple of years and then you're going to send them back? Are you going to mothball that school and have to pay expenses on a mothballed school? And how are you going to address what happens to these kids? Are they still going to walk to school? Are they still going to bike to school? Are they still going to have access to that local neighborhood school? And what's going to happen to the school into which those children are going to come? And how are you going to ensure effective transition, emotional transition for these kids? So we stand ready to work with you and engage parents. We've engaged a number who are here tonight, new parents who have never been to a school board meeting before, but in return, we ask you for data analysis
Ms.
and
Marmagast,
good
your
information.
time is up.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up is Kelly Pleasant.
Chairman Jones, members of the board, Ms. Blackburn, good evening. My name is Kelly Pleasant. I'm president of the Montgomery County Education Association and a fourth grade teacher at Gilbert Lincoln Elementary School. I'm here tonight to request your support of a resolution in support of the Virginia continuing contract laws as they currently stand. We know that you agree that high-quality instruction is the main ingredient in the recipe for student success. There's no denying the positive impact that teachers have on young people in classrooms here in Montgomery County and across the Commonwealth. Our state lawmakers had the foresight in 1968 to see that continuing contract laws were needed to establish uniform employment practices and to ensure high-quality instruction across Virginia. In the 5 decades since, these laws have worked. Teachers are regularly evaluated and must demonstrate proficiency. Those who do not measure up face dismissal. It's a fair system for all concerned. Before continuing contract was established, an experienced high-achieving teacher could still face sudden termination. A run-in with a principal or a parent over a teacher's refusal to change a student's grade, for example, could cost a teacher their job. Continuing contract has helped to put an end to that, and as a result, students benefit from a more stable and consistent instruction delivered by a high-quality staff. A revolving door approach to staffing serves no one. We all want the best for students here in Montgomery County. Continuing contract laws support this goal by attracting talented professionals to Virginia generally and to Montgomery County specifically. Virtually all our neighboring states have continuing contract laws on the books. These laws are helping to retain high-quality teachers, which minimizes cost in dollars and in student learning of high turnover. The threat of losing continuing contract continues. We ask you to join us in opposing any effort to diminish or repeal laws that protect employees' due process. Please support student educators and the community of Montgomery County by helping us pass this resolution. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important issue. And Ms. Drake has copies of it if you would like to see it. I sent them to you late this afternoon. If you didn't get them, I just am asking for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes all that have signed up. If there's anyone else that would like to speak to this board at this time, if you would please step forward and state your name and address. All right, back to Joe.
Good evening, board. My name is Kurt Zimmerman, and I am one of the new parents here. I'm one of the older fathers with a child who is attending Harding Elementary, and I just want to thank you again for all your work and the excellent educational system that I've walked into in this county. Was saddened to hear that again there was a possibility of Harding being removed from the educational system here after learning, that we're receiving these governor's awards for teaching excellence and all these excellent things that this small neighborhood community school was doing. I can only speak for myself and my wife and my family, and we are not wealthy, but certainly we, as one individual in the county, would be more than willing to contribute extra funds and resources through tax increases to sustain this degree of excellence in education. And I'm reminded of an old saying, a penny wise, pound foolish, short-term solution to meet this ongoing budget shortfall that is going to be an ongoing problem for the county here. So again, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the board at this time, please step forward and state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ian Bickford, 806 Petra Pass, Blacksburg, Virginia. My family just moved here in June. I'm the proud father of a 3-year-old and 18-month-old, and hopes for them to attend Harding Elementary. When we first moved here, we specifically chose Blacksburg due to the strong academic reputation, and out of that, particularly highlighted the Harding Avenue Elementary because it also had a very strong reputation. So I was very disappointed to hear about the possible closing of that elementary school and the impact it will have on not only on my family, but my neighborhood and all the surrounding houses. So I'd ask you to strongly consider in keeping that elementary school running, and I would gladly support a tax increase to help keep that viable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the board at this time, please step forward and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jason Boyle. I live at 3930 Horse Farm Road in Blacksburg. And I just want to say that, you know, you guys, we had a meeting at Harding Avenue, and Joe and Sarah came and talked to us, and I just, from that meeting, I took that, you know, we were on the budget, there were kind of a line item that was a certain amount of money, and we in the audience had asked questions about where the numbers had come from and how they were formed and how they were going to be evaluated. And it was, you know, they even said, well, hey, we really don't know where the numbers came from, or if they're correct, and I'm not saying they're not correct or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that when you guys make a decision about that specific item of Harding, that you really know that it's it's going to be a cost savings, and it's going to help the budget problem, you know, and that's really thought about, because it's going to affect people, it's going to affect their livelihoods, you know, not only in the educational field, but in my business and many other people's businesses around Blacksburg. So I just hope that you guys, and I know you will, to, you know, take time to make the correct decision about that budget item when it comes to Harding Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to address the board at this time? If so, please step forward and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Pierce Egelke, and I live at 2168 Harding Road. I have 3 daughters, one that attends Harding Avenue as a first grader, and the 2 others hopefully will soon. There's a lot of information that's been given out tonight, but in looking around and looking at some different reports, there's one that, you know, obviously I would not like our school closed, but there is one that really hit me hard. That doesn't just affect the parents, it affects the county, it affects other homeowners. I found a study that showed that between 10 to 18% of a property value of a community that loses its elementary school is lost. So what I'd ask is this true? Have you guys looked at different studies that have shown the effect on property value? If it is true, how are we going to address this? And in 2 or 3 or 4 years, when we have less revenue in Montgomery County, how's that going to affect us? And I think that that's just a good example of one of many facts that when you close a school, there's a lot of unintended consequences. And if this is the option that seems to be the best to do, in my mind, I feel like we need to take a very methodical approach, be very open about it, have lots of people involved in it, so we can make sure this is truly the best decision for this community and not a knee-jerk reaction to tightening budgets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to address the board at this time? If so, please step forward and state your name.
Good evening, Mark Chewbacca, 817 Montgomery Street. I have one daughter at Harding Elementary and one that will be entering hopefully in a couple of years. I was heavily involved in the county budget process, or the budget process last spring, and also spoke before you guys when you were considering school closings in the spring. One of the things coming into that, knowing that there were 3 different schools that were kind of on the chopping block from different parts of the county, is, you know, we'd heard these rumors about Montgomery County, how about, you know, either everybody hates Blacksburg, or, you know, this group against that group, and kind of thing. And one thing that I was really heartened by in that process was the fact that everybody kind of came together and said, don't close any schools. I think it was really clear that as a community and as a county, that was really a priority for us. And I think that moving forward now, I understand the budget issues that you guys are facing a lot better than I did, and I appreciate that, and I think that we need everybody to appreciate that in the county. And so I think the one point I would like to try to make tonight is, you know, the fact that we're even talking about school closures after, you know, all of you, I don't think any of you voted for any school closures last spring. And to go from that point where we were facing, what, a $4 million budget shortfall, to now we're facing about roughly 1 or 1 point something, to then basically say, okay, this is now the priority. This is the first thing we're going to go after is the school closures. I mean, I would hope that we would pick other things where everybody across the county had skin in the game, so to speak, and we can get everybody, more parents involved, because I think that's really what this is going to take. We really do need a long-term solution. I think that the county kind of is more maybe of a medium-term solution, but the state is really going to be where the long-term solution is going to come from. And we really need, we all need parents on your side. We need to be spending our time writing to our delegates, not fighting you guys. So I hope as we move forward in this process that maybe soon we can just take school closings off the table entirely and not even talk about it, and start talking about other sacrifices we would have to make if we didn't see additional revenue that comes forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that'd like to address the board, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing no one, public address is now closed. Next item on our agenda is the consent items. Does anybody have any of the items they would like to pull and review for consent?
I'd like to make a comment about the consent items. If you look at those, you'll see that they're grant proposals, and 6 of those grant proposals were made to the Montgomery County Educational Foundation. They were submitted to the foundation, and we're very pleased with that. I think you have some more information on that, Sarah?
We would just like to share that the past about 9 months, the foundation board has worked really hard to now have 14 board members and send out requests for these proposals, which we're excited that we got a total of 10 by October 1st. And in the coming month, we plan to announce the grant winners, and we're very excited about that. And we're also visiting many companies and civic organizations throughout the entire county to spread the word about our education foundation. And on February 2nd, we also have a scheduled fundraiser concert for the foundation. So please mark your calendar.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions on consent? Hearing none, items are approved on consent. Next item is and that include the minutes as well. Next item is the personnel report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the personnel report? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Personnel report is now approved. Next item is the payment of the bills. Need a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the bills? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the approval of the financial summary statement. Need a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the superintendent's reports, recommendations, and announcements. Ms. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. First item is our Appalachian Power Company power line easements for the new Auburn High School and the new Blacksburg High School. We're asking the board this evening to approve our request that the Board of Supervisors move forward to approve and grant the easements. They are for underground power lines and school properties, and they will service Auburn High School. You have the details in your enclosure 1, as well as Blacksburg High School, the details in your enclosure 2. And the recommendation is to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the easement? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Our next item is the January reorganization meeting. And as you all know, we meet routinely on the first and third Tuesdays. for the most part. And as we look at the calendar for January, it appears the first Tuesday in January would be a holiday, January 1. So we are asking that the board discuss this evening setting your first meeting, which is your reorganization meeting in January, at a different time.
Well, if we follow the January the 8th, which is the next Tuesday, that still keeps us on our first and third rotation. If you look at the schedule, I took an opportunity to look at the schedule. So it would be the 8th and then 14, 8th, be the 22nd. So the way the Tuesdays fall, we would be right back on the first and third Tuesday of February.
So you're proposing the second and fourth Tuesdays for the month of January.
For the month of January, which would be the 8th and the 22nd.
I may be out of town again for the first one, but
Motion.
I just need a motion. This is here for action, and I'm proposing.
So moved.
On the
Second.
8th and the 22nd in
Right.
January. Okay. We got a motion over here, Ms. Franklin. Mr. Ivers was the second. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? You have your dates for January.
Yes, so we will be meeting January 8th and 22nd. The first meeting, January 8th, will be the reorganization meeting.
Get that done.
Our next item is our routine monthly facilities update, and I'd ask Mr. Baronato if he'd come to the podium for that, please.
Good evening. Update on some projects we've been following. The one at Christiansburg is now complete in base contract, and the extra bathroom partitions are complete, and everyone's enjoying that project at CHS. Engineering evaluation of schools still in process. The consultant's working on the final draft, and we intend a presentation in November on that. We're also planning, in conjunction with the move to Building C, which Facilities Department will help out. We're also planning the closure of the school board office in association with that, and also Shawsville Elementary School, which is where the remaining parts of the special ed program are located. So we'll be able to close those two. We're also, we have closed and winterized Old Price's Fork Elementary, and we actually gave the keys over to the county today, and all the accounts are being turned over to the county for Old Price's Fork, and we're also working on Old Blacksburg High School. As you know, we do have some items there that will go into the new school, especially the two big chillers and cooling towers. As soon as we get all those out and they're in the process of being taken out and some other things, we'll close that building down farther and farther. In the green oval there, Ms. Blackburn got a nice email on Friday from Virginia School Board Association, and we had applied about a month and a half ago for their Green School Award, School Division Award, and we found out that we will be getting that Green School Division Award, and I think there's a conference in November where y'all can pick that up.
Yes. And I'd like to thank Dan and Patty Goudreau, and I think there were some other folks on your committee, Dan, but we talked about this several times, and this year Dan and Patty took a leadership role to do the evaluation, and so you're going to be recognized. So congratulations. Thank you, Dan.
We had done a lot of stuff, we just never had put it together to be recognized, so there you are. So that's great news. Some of the boost.
Can we ask questions on this last page?
Sure.
What exactly, the engineering evaluations of schools, what exactly does that entail?
That's the facility assessments that we're having done. They're looking at the different systems in the schools, the structural systems, the building envelope, they're looking at the mechanical system, electrical, and plumbing systems of all the schools that we're actually not have projects on right now. And they started in June, and they're working on finishing up their report.
Thank you.
KIPS restroom facility, that's ongoing. I have a picture of that. The CHS practice field, that's complete. The team is using it, and I'll have a picture of that as well. Safe Routes to School is a federal and state program. The town of Blacksburg won some grant money. It's associated with our schools. Most of the work is done in the neighborhoods around our schools. Margaret Beeks, Gilbert Linkus, and Harding Avenue have had those programs through the Town of Blacksburg initiative. The county, Montgomery County Planning Director, Steve Sandy, is preparing, in cooperation with our Auburn schools and Bellevue schools, grant proposals for those. And they believe they'll be submitted in January, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. So that's good. Federal money to basically add sidewalks and different traffic calming initiatives so it's safer to walk and bike to school.
A question for that. How could you possibly make it safe to walk or bike to Bellevue?
They're proposing, yeah,
right.
They're doing their best. Of course, you know, it is on 114, and Steve's working on that. It involves some sidewalks across the street and in the neighborhood adjacent. He's also working on a possibility of a crosswalk across Route 14 within the flashing yellow lights. So we'll see how it works out. He's not finalized, but those are his preliminary plans. And he's working with VDOT on that and make sure it's safe. They've had meetings at the school with parents and a committee, and I agree with you. It's going to be a tough one, but I think it's worthwhile because there's the development right across the road that's really growing there. So the top picture there is the CHS practice field. Looks like a big green field, but it's a lot better than it was, and it's a full-size football field, and it's irrigated. The bottom picture is, you can see where we are. This was taken, I think, Friday, where the town of Blacksburg is, just bringing that low block up from the foundations. And they're wanting to get finished by wintertime on that.
And as a parent who spends a lot of time at Kipps Elementary, I'm glad to see bathrooms there going to be installed.
Just
Thank you, Dan.
that falling branch.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the update, and again, for your leadership with the Green Schools designation. Our next item is our capital projects update. Welcome back, Curtis. We've missed you the last couple of times. But your designees did a great job.
I've trained them well, hopefully.
That's what they said.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm here to give a quick update on the progress of the two new high schools, Auburn High School, Blacksburg High School, and Auburn Middle School. I will tell you that a lot of activity is going on, and there's work going on 7 days a week, and Branch and Associates is working very hard to get those schools open by next summer. So hopefully you've had a chance to drive by. If you haven't lately, I'd encourage you to do so. Some pictures. The one on the left is Auburn High School. If you're coming up the road to Auburn Elementary School, this is what you would see. That's actually the classroom wing of the building with sheathing on it, roof trusses going in, roofing actually being installed. On other parts of the building, kind of behind it, a lot of the brick on some of the elevations are complete, and the brick work is still ongoing. I know the slab in the auditorium has been poured. The roof is on the main gym. So a lot of work is going on at Auburn High School. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing work continues. On the right, the good news is the softball field is pretty much complete, ready to be turned over early for the spring softball season. The only thing left is some asphalt paths that'll go around the field that should be done either this week or next week. But the sod is in, the scoreboard's up, the dugouts are complete, fencing is up, and it looks really great. I don't have a picture here, but another component of that is the tennis courts, which are right near the Auburn Elementary School, are also nearing completion. The base is in. Once they pour the asphalt paths for the softball field, they will go over to the tennis courts and pour the tennis courts. So the only thing left on the tennis courts after the next couple weeks will just be installing the lighting for those. Some more pictures of Auburn High School. Going inside the classroom building on your left, you can see that ductwork is in, plumbing is in, sprinkler lines are in. Some door frames are being set now, so a lot of progress on the inside. And on your right is a view of some of the light monitors. They're in the inside of the building and other parts. Going across town to Blacksburg, picture on your left is a view of the kind of looking northeast across the campus. You'll see the classroom building with the brick on. Brickwork is pretty much complete on the classroom wing of the building. The roof is wrapping up. They're complete with that for that section of the project. Site work is ongoing in the back. You can see that the auditorium and the gym, or the hot walls and the masonry walls, are up. You can see a better picture of that on the right. Locker rooms. Site work is ongoing. Blacksburg is progressing pretty well. More pictures of Blacksburg. On the left is a close-up of the classroom wing. They're actually installing windows this week on the second and third floor of that building. So, and you can see from the inside on the right that the good news is that drywall is going in. So you can start seeing walls being closed up and kind of get a better idea of how big these classrooms are and how nice they are. Of course, you can see some of the duct work and the electrical and plumbing going in as well. Other activity, we received on Friday the revised construction documents for the Auburn Middle School project. They are being reviewed by Montgomery County and Skanska. The idea is that the team will review those, get comments back to the design team so that they can get the project rebid in mid-November, in about a month from now, so that they will get bids back and final pricing, hopefully as a Christmas present, so we'll know where we stand with that project. Also, Route 8 work, they're finishing some utilities. Pretty much everything is done except for Shintel's got a little bit of utility work along the side of the road. If you travel that way, starting next week or the week after, you'll start seeing the road work starting, and you might have some delays, but that's a good thing. That means we're putting in turn lanes. Montgomery County is working very hard on the FF&E and technology procurement. I know that effort has ramped up in the last couple of weeks with the principals getting involved. And so they're way ahead of the curve on making sure that all that procurement processes happen. RFPs for the greenhouses for both the high schools and the middle school is out for bid right now. The proposals are due next week for those. And Montgomery County is handling that procurement. And the good news is we're still on schedule to occupy the schools, both the high schools next summer, followed by a year later with the middle school. So everything's progressing well. And that's all I have.
Board members, any questions?
Got a couple. Just curious, when is the last time that the different building committees for Auburn High School and Blacksburg High School met?
That was, I think it was a couple
The
months ago.
Auburn High School one is scheduled to meet this coming Friday morning again, and I don't remember the exact date of the last Blacksburg High School one, but we'll meet with them again when there's an appropriate time to do so. They were a little bit ahead of the Auburn group with getting their color boards and that kind of thing, but that's on my calendar reminder list.
I understand that some people have gotten tours inside the high schools, different departments and such. Just curious as to when maybe the building committees, the school board, board of supervisors might get tours also.
I'll answer that. I've spoken with Mr. Jones. I believe it's on our agenda under new business, I think, tonight, to talk with the board members about their interest in going on a tour of the construction site. We're going to try to do it 5 to 6, several different afternoons, and get you all to sign up. So Board of Supervisors has also indicated that they might have an interest in taking a look. So it's on our radar.
And with Blacksburg High School, there was on the design a 13th science classroom. I was just wondering what was decided about that. Are we going to have an auto class? How's that going to be used?
I'm trying to think if you're talking about the classroom that's down in the career and technical area that we're hoping will perhaps be a great opportunity for a STEM type activity that would involve science and robotics, and also access to the shop there that would allow them to, build a robot and do some things like that. So it's there, and it's, planned space and some opportunity to be a little creative with some instructional opportunities for kids.
But we haven't definitely defined what its use is.
Patty Goudreau is working with us on, and Rick Weaver, on defining exactly what it'll look like.
We made the spaces flexible as we could to accommodate.
Is this in lieu of or along with a auto shop?
It's along with an auto shop.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not in lieu of anything. It's just down in that area so that you'd have a big open space to be able to build robots and things like that. So hopefully we can stop leasing space. And as you all know, we're currently using CHS for robotics, and we're doing it almost in the same format that we hope to be able to perhaps use that space at Blacksburg. And doing it at Christiansburg this year has increased our interest at Christiansburg, and we'd really like to see the day that we have a robotics program at both of those high schools to serve all 4 of our high school students.
I just had one more. The canopies that we talked about on Blacksburg High School, how is that left? Are we?
Currently, there's no money for canopies. When we get to the end of the project, there will be some areas where you could go back and add canopies. There's some areas where you could not because of the underlying construction, the foundation. But at this point, we are very fortunate that the projects are on time and appear to be in budget, but we have no idea about the potential for any surplus in either project at this point.
You said there's been tours already?
I'm sorry.
I toured, and Mr. Kitts took his 2 or 3 of his leadership team there to take a look. I'm not sure if Mr. Pauly has taken his or not, but yes.
We've started staff tours on a weekly basis.
Okay, I want to get back on this transparency kick again. And I really think that this committee that we had set up that hasn't met since we don't know when, the Blacksburg Committee?
I don't,
It's been a few months
Mr.
since-
Ellswick doesn't run those committees.
No, I know that. He did mention the fact that they hadn't met since you don't remember.
I said, I don't know when Blacksburg met. I have Auburn High School scheduled for this Friday, but I'd be happy to pull my calendar and let you know when they met.
Well, it's been a while, and I really think that one of the things that I stated from the get-go that I wanted to have, and that's transparency. And I've got, there's been tours going through the building, and I think the most important tour we have is to have that committee go through the building. That's transparency. Those are citizens, and they're the most important people we have. Secondly, there was something about the cafeteria, about the design of the cafeteria, how it was going to be set up,
I'm not aware of any.
whether it was going to be some sort of a cafeteria style or
Food, kind of a more modern, contemporary look, not the traditional, what you see in current cafeterias, but we looked at some food court ideas, and those cafeterias are laid out to be food courts. The exact placement of the student furniture has not yet been determined. That's part of this FF&E process that's going on, and that's where the principals and the building committees and students will again be engaged a little bit in the conversation. The teachers have been very engaged in identifying furniture for the classrooms.
Okay, so just so I understand, the cafeteria will be we'll have citizens input, students input,
Not citizens.
well, like the committee.
The committee. The
And-
committee will be involved, and the principal, Mr. Simpkins, is being a leadership person on my side.
Okay.
And we will involve some students in the decisions about the open areas that are student common areas.
Okay.
Or at least get their voice involved.
I'd like to be aware of when that happens and be involved in that also, just as an observer. And then,
We are continuing to routinely post the meetings of the building committee on our website every time they meet.
okay. The greenhouses, if I recall, there was talk that the greenhouse was not going to be exactly what it started out to be. It was going to be something less. Am I off base on that?
No, they're pretty
No,
much.
we chose to go a different provider, not a change in the structure.
Okay, I guess that was it. And the last thing that I have is, and again, you can't answer this.
Okay.
The principals of each one of these schools are going to be under incredible pressure to be at both places at once. And that's beginning to loom up in front of us. Do you have a contingency plan for that you're working on so that we can make
It's-
sure that,
It's in place.
Right.
When I spoke with you all some time back about the move into Building C, I provided you with some information about how I would accomplish some other things. And one of them was providing some release time for the two high school principals. And I was going to do it with approximately $55,000 that we saved on athletic directors and by not having to lease space for the robotics programs this year since they're housed at CHS and going very well. So that person has been employed. He was on your personnel report, I believe, at the last board meeting. It's Tracy Poff.
okay, I remember that.
It would prove that.
Remember that.
So that person works for both high schools?
He will divide his time between BHS and between East Montgomery, Auburn High School, and Mr. Simpkins coordinates that with the two high school principals and this person.
So you're working on a tour for the board?
I am. We're going to talk about it
Okay,
tonight.
good. Thank you.
Mhm. Actually, I have some dates and just started to send them out by email and then thought it might be better to do it in this forum.
Next item.
Take me just a second. Okay, our next item is the budget update for this evening, and you will recall that I have committed to do a budget update at the second meeting in each month for the school board. And you have an attachment that was uploaded to your board docs this afternoon. And that attachment is, it's called the PowerPoint, but really it's just some key talking points out of my notes so that you'd have a frame of reference for some of the things that I'm going to say. So again, as I said, I last updated the board on the,
We did
yes.
do a sequential. Yeah. you
Oh,
got-
did I miss one?
We can go back to it.
Oh, well, I can just do budget update and come back to sequestration. No, we'll do sequestration. I missed it, sorry. This print's way too tiny, okay? I can make it bigger. All right. You all have been involved in various aspects of gaining information about sequestration over the last 4 weeks or so. I know some of you participated in a webinar. Some of you have gone to face-to-face conferences. But to sum it up, sequestration is essentially the outcome of the failure of the budget control super committee to be able to come to agreement on $1.2 trillion in federal tax reduction measures. As a result of that, on January 2nd, an automatic 8.2% approximately cut could happen to many, many federal programs, and that includes education as well as military, and other operations of the federal government. For our school system, the impact would be a potential loss in 13-14 of between $350,000 and $400,000 from Title I, other entitlement programs, and special education. And these are programs that serve some of our very neediest students. NSBA, as well as my professional organization, Virginia Association of School Superintendents, are urging board members and the public to be informed about the detrimental impact of an across-the-board 8% cut to federal funds that serve education. And this evening, we have a resolution for our board's consideration in terms of a way for you to show your support for looking at the need to make federal cuts in a different way rather than across-the-board cuts. Presented for your consideration this evening.
I would like to. Second.
Any further discussion?
One just point. You already sent a letter, is that correct?
I sent letters. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And now I'll do
Now,
the
budget
budget update. I guess I know what I have on my mind. Okay. So it's the second meeting of the month, and I started early this year, and the last time I updated the board was on September 18th. And we have a PowerPoint that's not really a PowerPoint tonight, because what it is just some key talking points out of the notes that I've made and that I'm going to share with you tonight, so that perhaps it would be a good frame of reference. I'd like to start out by saying that we've already begun some action steps. And I'm very pleased to report tonight that since the last meeting, we have activated the 2013-2014 website. I'd like to thank board members as well as some of our public who've provided us with some great suggestions to make the website easier to use and for some additional information to be there. And we will continue to update that website as we get additional information. Also, for any member of the public or for the board, there's a link that you can click on there and give your email address, and you'll get an automatic notification every time we add new information to the budget website. So I encourage you to take a look. It's one of the buttons right down the side of the page, very easy to access. Secondly, we are also taking some other actions, and one of them is the resolution that you just approved this evening, with the resolution against the sequestration impact on education. And earlier than that, you had approved a resolution asking that our own legislature make establishing the budget a priority over any other political actions that may be necessary work of the legislature. Also tonight, I'm going to make some comments about the budget and about one of the things that I'm doing, and that is that every time I have an opportunity to speak to a group, whether it be a school faculty, whether it be a PTA, PTO, a support group, most recently I spoke to those who were in attendance at the All-State Chorus event. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening with the budget for Montgomery County Public Schools. And I would urge you, as you have opportunities to speak with groups in the community, to also share a little bit about what's going on with MCPS budget, and I'd be happy to provide you with some talking points. I also spoke to the Harding Elementary School staff the other day, and we talked a little bit about the economics that are driving some of the very tough decisions that this board had to look at last year and will again have to look at this year. And then the next one that I have with the public group is on October 23rd, when I'll be speaking with the Blacksburg Library Board and the Friends of the Library. So if there are those in our audience or board members who have civic groups or others that you'd like for me to speak to, I'm happy to do that. You just need to contact my office and I'll make myself available. So why start this budget process so early? There's several reasons. Number one, I expect that we're going to have to make some more reductions. And they're not necessarily because we're going to have a loss of funding, but it is because we're going to have some additional cost that we have to absorb. So when you, even with level funding, if you have new bills you have to pay, it has the same impact as a loss of revenue.
Such as?
For example, I expect that one thing that we're required to do is we have to add at least another 1% transfer of VRS money to employees in 2013, 2014. And it costs the district probably $150,000. Last year it was $140,000 in additional FICA and other things that we pay for employees. So there's a cost to the division above and beyond the exact monetary value of the transfer. That's one, and I'll talk a little bit more about what some of the others are as I move through the presentation. So again, why so early? We want to keep the public informed. There's absolutely no intent to surprise anyone. We want to engage you and solicit your public support for education in Montgomery County schools and for public education specifically across the state of Virginia. We want to keep you informed again, as I said, and also this is the second year of the biennium. So it is anticipated that it will be a very short legislative session. Right. So things will happen quickly. And, you know, that could be good compared to last year when I had to wait, 4 months to figure out how much money I had. But it can also get ahead of you if you're not being very vigilant and watch what's going on with the legislature throughout the very short second biennium session. So what are the issues? I mentioned that I'm expecting that we'll have to make reductions and what's driving that. So these are the issues. The increased cost, and some of the increased costs are the VRS 1% will cost us about $150,000 from operating above and beyond the 1%. Secondly, we expect that there will be additional cost in employee medical insurance plans, some of it being driven because of some of the changes that are coming from the federal level, but also just because medical insurance premiums are going up yearly, no matter what the industry or the business is. Last year, our increase was approximately $270,000. And so just to be on the safe side, I'm using that number again. So we've got $140,000 and we've got $140,000 and now we've got a potential $270,000. We also have the additional cost of operating our new buildings. You saw the pictures of Auburn High School and New Blacksburg High School. You know from the past when we opened the new East Montgomery Elementary School and the new Price's Fork Elementary School, that these much larger, much more complex buildings carry with them an additional cost in operations. And we expect that at a minimum, the additional cost for operating new AHS and new BHS will be about $225,000. So I think I'm somewhere in the range of $650,000 just with those things that I've just mentioned. We talked about sequestration, and although sequestration is a reduction in federal funds, you'll find yourself in a really difficult position because title money, federal money, is driven by regulations, and sometimes the federal government takes away money and does not take away regulations. So we may very well find ourselves in a position of having to fund the $350,000 to $400,000 worth of programs or benefits for students that are no longer funded by the federal government. It has the exact same effect as creating a negative in your budget. So that's somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000. Again, if you think back to the reductions that were made in the spring of 2012, some of them we knew were one-time cuts, and 2 of them were maintenance positions that we knew we'd have to reinstate when we opened our 2 new high schools. And they carry a dollar value of somewhere between $95,000 and $100,000 by the time you add the benefits package. So that's another issue that's looming out there. We also have to make we made some cuts that we later pulled back on, and we had to fill that gap this year, and we will have to fill that gap again next year. One specifically was pay to play, which was approximately $72,000. So that gap will have to be paid. You have to ask yourself the question, what is the sustainability of the cuts that we made? We reduced 40 people across the county. We reduced athletic directors in our high schools. We have to ask the question, how is that impacting what's happening in our schools? We reduced some guidance counselors. We reduced some social workers. We reduced classroom teachers. We reduced our in-school suspension assistants in our middle schools. We reduced some of our curriculum supervisors or significantly changed the way their workday looks. So we have to ask ourselves, can we sustain those cuts? Those cuts amounted to $2 million, and we have to ask, can we keep every one of them? Then you have the further complication, and that is that you're already, this year, with your $92 million budget, we're $5 million below the level of funding that this school division had for 2008, 2009. And if you apply inflation to that $5 million, it's like $12 million worth of spending power. I've just been over to a conference in Charlottesville the last 2 days, and some of our state representatives said, we don't know how you're running your schools on that much less money and still doing the kind of job that we require that you do and that you want to do. You've got to address salary concerns. I mean, it's a huge issue. I've been sharing with you some of the regional data about Montgomery County Public Schools competitiveness. And with our starting salary for teachers sitting approximately $34,600, we're not competitive with Roanoke County. We're not competitive with Roanoke City. We're not competitive with Salem. We're being competitive with districts that are much smaller than us. And Pulaski has a higher starting salary than we do. So we're competing with Giles and Craig. And although, those are great counties, they're not comparable to the complexity that you have in terms of demographics and the necessity of services and the kind of educational programs that you offer in Montgomery County. So I just have to keep on my radar the fact that salaries are sooner or later going to have to rise on the radar. Interesting, no state money has been directed specifically to salaries since 2007.
Right.
No new state money directed to employee salaries since 2007. That's a long time. And the employees in Montgomery County have had a 1% raise in that time, and gas was $2.20 a gallon when that raise was applied. And I checked the pumps, it was $3.52 was, I think, the cheapest I saw today. So there are issues with compensation for employees. Our Board of Supervisors, they have been great to step up to the plate. And if you go and look at the budget website, you'll see the graph, and it's so vivid. It shows the $10 million decrease in the state funding, and at the same time, our Board of Supervisors has been adding funds to Montgomery County education, but not at the same pace that we've been losing funds from the state. So can we count on the funding that we have from the Board of Supervisors being stable this coming year? Can we count on an increase? Or would there be something that would cause a decrease? These are all unknowns. We also had one-time funding from the Board of Supervisors for some very specific purchases in Montgomery County schools that benefited our students, and those were for technology, buses, and the next year of our roofing plan. It was $750,000 of one-time county money. And will that money come back in one-time money again from the Board of Supervisors? Or will we be struggling to find a way to cover that from the Montgomery County operating budget? So those are some of the things that are keeping me awake at night. Considerations. there are some things that we know. And, one of the things we know is we're going to get a little increase in state funding. When I say a little increase in state funding, it's a little increase. It's planned at $230,000 is the planned increase for Montgomery County Schools in the second year of the governor's budget. Will we get some more? Probably, because everything I hear is that revenue is up a little bit, collections are up a little bit, but will it be big money? Probably not. You have an issue that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's one that is of great concern to me. I think the strength of Montgomery County Public Schools continues to be in the people that work here. And I see that no matter where I go, whether it be in a classroom, whether it be in the division staff, or among our custodians, our cafeteria workers, or whomever it is. They're just a magnificent group of people who are so very dedicated to schools and to students. You have a staff that's pretty stretched. We've got some huge issues on the burner for the summer of 2013, and there are three that I consider top priority in terms of significant staff time, and they are moving Auburn High School into New Auburn High School, moving Blacksburg High School out of Blacksburg Middle School and into New Blacksburg High School, and moving Blacksburg Middle School, if there's any way in the world to do it, to get them back to Blacksburg in 13-14. And so, those are huge demands on your staff. And I just have to say that, based on those established priorities, we've talked a little bit about 2 or 3 school closures. It was never recommended. It was on a list of options that the board needed to look at, and the options ranged from small items to very large items, but it was never one of the items identified by either the superintendent or by this board as an action item. And I would have to tell you that with the demands that you have on your staff for the summer of 2013, 2014, we would be very challenged to try to close and move any school or any department or anything else during the summer of 2013. And it's just a matter of how many things can the same group of people accomplish. If it is required, that we will do everything that we can do to accomplish it. But again, it would be very, very challenging to accomplish that. Numbers, budgets, they're a guessing game along the way until somebody really gives you a number. And so I decided just to put my, neck on the chopping block and say, what's my best guess about what the deficit could be? And, I'm thinking with level funding, meaning if the Board of Supervisors does everything that they say they're going to do, and the numbers I gave you about new costs hold true, and we actually get the $230,000, you're probably somewhere in the area of $1.5 million that you need to find, and that's without doing a single thing for employee compensation or adding any new program or revisiting whether you can actually sustain all the reductions that were made last year. So that's my guess. And again, like I said, it is just a guess. But I also ask you the question, is the status quo what we want? And is the status quo good enough? And I'm hard-pressed to answer that question with a yes. So what does it cost to do anything for employees? The cost to do a 1.6% salary increase for all employees, or for all employees who are on a salary schedule, the people who are at the very top of the salary schedule would not be counted in this 1.6% because they're not moving to a different schedule. So it would probably cost more than this. To do 1.6% would cost you a minimum of $1.3 million. And 1.6% at this point in a salary schedule that's not been touched in 4 years would not be the kind of money that it would take to make a significant difference in our competitiveness in teacher salaries. Will the state come through? There's a lot of talk that, you know, the state understands that they're overdue to put money into teacher salaries, but I'm going to wait and see on that one. But it would be great because there has not been any money directed at teacher salaries since 2007. So what are some of the possible solutions? You know, you all charge me with trying to, you know, think about how to solve problems. And, you know, sometimes you send me problems, but you also expect me to think about solving. And I've been, you know, doing that, trying to just think about where I would go. And, you know, the first place I would go, I'll tell you the truth, is I'd look at last year's list of cost savings measures because it was very well thought out. It was comprehensive. It touched virtually every facet of the organization. And I'd have to go back and revisit that list. And it's right there, you know, for everybody to look at on the website. And also it's a part of this slide presentation. We'll come to it in just a minute. Another place is pupil-teacher ratio, and it's been something that this board has worked towards keeping it as low as possible for many, many years. But there's a lot of money in pupil-teacher ratio. An increase of one student across the board, and remember we're talking averages, and averages are very hard to deal with when you talk about kids in classrooms because kids don't come in neat packages of 20. But an increase of one student across all grade levels would be the equivalent of $2.5 million or 42 FTE positions. And, you know, I just think you have to just think about it. Our PTRs are very, very favorable, not only in the region, but if you look at us against some school districts, I asked some folks over the last few days about their class size, and I asked them about elementary, 23. Ours is 18 and a little over 20. I asked them about, and remember, those are averages, so the numbers are deceptive in some ways because you can walk into a classroom and find it, you know, a larger number than that, but you can also walk into a classroom and find a significantly smaller number than that. Not a place that I would want to go, but it's a place I think we need to at least keep our eye on. Changing ways of doing business, that's the study list from the 12-13 approved budget, and that's the one that has the things about outsourcing on it. It has the things about looking at different ways of scheduling our schools. It has increased use of virtual. It has, I've forgotten all the lists, but it's there, and it's a link. It's got a link right to it from our website. Most importantly, and I see the folks in the room this evening with the purple shirts, you know, if the board were to make a decision not to close the school, I hope I still see you, and the purple shirts, and the green shirts, and the red shirts, because to really have an impact, we have got to engage the public. You are the ones who elect our elected officials. You know, I vote too, but your vote is more powerful than mine. And so I hope that regardless of some of the decisions that the board might rule out, some things that they don't want to do, that you'll still be a presence and you'll still be coming to the mic and talking about what's in the greater good of the schools in Montgomery County. Go to legislative days in Richmond. Write an op-ed piece to the Roanoke Times or to the Bergs, you know. Make your feelings about public education known. Request additional funds for the county. You know, the county looks at me and they see my hand out. I'm probably going to be going across and asking again this year. But I do think, again, for the folks in the audience, you know, our Board of Supervisors need to know how you feel about funding for education. Or just accept the status quo, fill the hole, cut what we have to do to come up with the $1.5 million, and walk on. That's not what I want to recommend, but I think that we have to also look at that. Is status quo good enough for the children of Montgomery County? So what's my recommendation? I think we should have an early opportunity for public reaction and input. You know, last spring, some folks said, "You didn't tell us that." You know, it's one thing to tell you something. It's one thing to write it down. It's one thing to put it on the website. But you have to hear it on the other end. You know, I can talk forever, but unless I have listeners, no one knows what I'm saying. So I need to make sure that the public knows what you're talking about and that the public has an opportunity to react to what we're talking about, and also make us some good suggestions about what else we might could look at in terms of budget reductions than the things that my staff and the board and others who have spoken to us have been able to come up with and put on the list. It is an our problem. It's not a my problem. It's an our problem because it will affect each and every person in the room. So I'm asking the board this evening to consider a November special meeting. And I would suggest that one of the things that we ought to do is put out a comprehensive list of things that the board would at least talk about. And I started a list, and my list came directly, it's the next slide. My list came directly off of the 2012-2013 list and some of the things that I talked about this evening. But I also think it's important not to put out a list of things that you would never support. Because the purpose is not to cry wolf. The purpose is to say, these are the things that we're having to look at to come up with potentially, you know, $1.5 million, or if you decide you want to try to do something with employee compensation, $4.5 million, or what. And so it needs to be a laundry list. And I included, you know, PTR and some other things on there that we haven't talked about, but I went back to that list and I included a lot of things we did talk about, like reduction of assistant principals in elementary schools, employee furlough days, a fee for participating in VHSL activities. I put building closures and consolidations. Every single thing on this list is here for one reason. It's here because of economics. It's not here for any other reason except for the fact that there's a need for additional funds to operate the school system the way you want to operate it. So it's a menu. My idea for the special meeting format would be for it to be a 2-agenda item meeting only. And the first agenda item would be for your employee groups who usually speak to the board about budget, would be for your employee groups to have an opportunity to make their statements about the budget. And then secondly, I would suggest that you dedicate the remainder of the meeting to public comment. And that in doing that, that you might want to revisit your public speaking time limit. Maybe you want to reduce it for that meeting to 2 minutes. Maybe you want to set a time certain end for the meeting. And then if we haven't finished, then discuss whether the board would want to hold another meeting, because it's ineffective to be listening to important stuff at 1 a.m. in the morning. And, you know, so we can do some things proactively to frame a meeting that would allow us to do it in a very productive way and do it in a central location. I suggest here simply because it's central, it's got a large enough venue, or if you don't think it's got a large enough venue, then let's go to one of our schools where there's a larger meeting room, an auditorium or something. But I think that it's important to go ahead and get out in front of this. Key dates, and in a next agenda item, you've got your budget calendar for the year, but I'd like to just share with you some of the things that I've been thinking about that I think are milestones to me. Number one, we need to hear the public in November.
Need to hear what?
We need to hear the public in November, and as early in November as we can, because they may have some great ideas to share with us, and we need to have time to think about them and know if we can make them work. Then from that time until the first part of December, if there are things that this board would like for me and my staff to follow up on, you need to let us know so that we can address your request for information. Same time period, starting right now, my next leadership team meeting will begin the focus of trying to bring you a list of recommended budget reductions. My head is in a different place this year. You know, last year we pretty much waited and said, okay, we're going to try to get this $96 million that we need to run this school system. Then we got 92, and we had to find $4 million worth of cuts. So I'm going to try to come with the cuts in the beginning so that at the same time you say to me, we want you to go ask for more funds, we also know that we have this list over here. When I don't get them, you've already determined what the cuts are. So I would see that happening. Staff finalizing recommendations in the October to December timeframe. You'll have the governor's budget proposal, the first meeting in January, and also at that first meeting in January, I would propose to bring you my first round list of things for you to identify for potential budget reductions if you have to make them. And then second meeting in January, the board would adopt the budget for public hearing based on the reductions that you might have to make, as well as the fact that you may want to request additional educational support from the Board of Supervisors, and we'll be watching what the legislature does. So what are the next steps? The board's discussion this evening about the comments that I've made and what you'd like to do, and if you are of a mind to do so, to set a meeting for November, the meeting that I talked about, and determine what you think that meeting ought to look like in terms of parameters, in terms of length of public speaking, in terms of beginning time and ending time, and begin this process of engaging with our public as early as we can. With that, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Blackburn. Board members, comments, questions?
I would like to suggest that we listen to everyone who wants to be heard. And so if we need to have 2 meetings for public comment, I would be in favor of that. But I really think it's important that our citizens, parents, taxpayers feel they have the opportunity to speak to us. I feel strongly about that.
I'm okay with hearing everybody, but I don't think we need to hear 3 minutes from, or however long each time, the same thing over and over and over till 1 o'clock in the morning. No disrespect to anyone. I'm all about hearing from everybody, but like at 11 or 12 o'clock, I'm not hearing what they want me to hear. And so I think someone can express what they want you to hear in a shorter time. And I think if we put a cap on the meeting, then it's not so redundant. And I agree with Ms. Blackburn in the sense of hearing ideas. We all know, you know, those who have children in the governor's school, that's what their heart is. Those people that have children in sports, that's what their heart is. You know, every group is where their heart is, and that's what they're going. No one wants anything cut or anything to be gotten rid of, so we understand that. What I'm looking and what I would like to see come out of this meeting is to someone say, hey, why don't we look at this? Have we looked at that? I don't work in the system. It's hard for me to do that. But if someone points it out, I can look into it and go from there. So that's, as a board member, what I would like to see, opposed to every group coming and telling me they don't want that certain item cut. I already know that.
I suggest November the 13th is that public hearing.
Can I do this? Since the budget planning calendar is our next agenda item, are we ready to go there and then entertain the motions and discuss the dates and stuff?
I can do that, but
you want approval on this?
I will want approval on that, and it does require that you fill in the blank for the November meeting. But the other piece of the discussion is, you know, what are we going to put on this list?
I have some comments on the, not really the logistics of the time and the date of the meeting, but the actual agenda of it and the potential cuts list that Ms. Blackburn listed. I like the idea of, after her staff has come together and we've heard feedback and starting with that list and adding more. But I also like the idea of talking as a board before that meeting about, are there items on there that we don't need to even entertain? And also, under each item, I would hope that we could provide some more details instead of just the 4-word phrase, so that the public can know what we're talking about in a little bit more detail before they come up to have their public comment. Like, for example, the school closure. I'm wondering if a majority of us would like that left on the table, because I definitely have more questions about all the schools that we've talked about potentially closing and the details of that before I would want to recommend doing that. So I don't know if there's other things on there, but I think before that meeting, the agenda is more important to me than the actual start time, end time, logistics of the public comment.
Okay. So once we can we go to the next agenda item and set the meeting dates, and then we'll talk about the content of the agenda? So you have the budget planning calendar before you there. Oh, come here.
Ms. Franklin, what date did you offer?
13th.
It's a Tuesday. We are going to meet on the 6th and the 20th of November. This would be the middle Tuesday of that.
Sounds good to me.
You're going to be at
I'll be out of town.
BSBA.
Yeah, that's
Starts on the 14th, 15th, and 16th for some that goes to the early bird stuff. So it's the
What about the
Tuesday.
12th?
The 12th.
12 will be better.
Yeah, it's important everybody be here, so we got to make sure
I
that
don't want to
everybody.
go down at midnight again.
When does the Board of Supervisors?
That's a Monday.
12th is good. And I would, possibly suggest having it at the high school.
Monday, November the
Yeah.
12th. Does that work for everyone?
Mhm.
Are you going to be in town?
So we're filling in the blank in November 2012 with Monday, the 12th,
I think
November
it's
the
the Board of Supervisors meeting that day, right?
Is there?
No, there's not. Okay.
Matt, no, we're not meeting that day.
Okay.
So the 12th is open.
Okay.
7 o'clock,
Yeah.
CHS, Central.
You want to do it at CHS?
Yeah.
Why not here?
Just in case there's enough.
But the numbers of people, I think it's better
When you do it in a larger venue.
to be at the high school.
We've done it there before.
Yeah.
too.
I
Set
can,
up.
I can make it happen in CHS, okay? I just have to check and make sure it's available. That's the
Sure.
issue.
I actually prefer this location.
Yeah. I agree.
We overflowed with 2 of our meetings and had to have folks
Chairs
standing
put it back
outside,
there.
so we have to deal with that.
Okay.
If
Well,
not CHS back here.
Yeah. Works for me.
And do we want to set a timeline, as far as how long we want the meeting to go?
I think
7 to,
10 at the latest. I think if we do need to have a start, an end time on this at 9. I agree. I'm not going to be here till 1 o'clock in the morning because you just don't. 10:30 shutting down, 10 o'clock shutting down.
and so then what?
I'll throw that out for your consideration.
Well, and
Go to 10 o'clock.
my,
That's 3 hours. of
I
public
agree, and I think if you put that out there, people don't expect that you're, I think, even if we had 2 meetings,
I would just like to leave it open that
Yeah.
if folks are finished at 9.
Right.
oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Of
Well, if
course.
everybody finishes at 9, we adjourn at 9, but
Yeah.
and when we'll make sure that
Sit around waiting for folks to show up.
that last
Well,
meeting.
No.
Well, if you,
Oh, that's a good
if
point.
you have it from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
and you give everybody 3 minutes to speak, that's 60 people.
We had 80.
Yes, I know,
something.
my point.
I'm just saying, if folks show up and at 9 o'clock, I don't want to have us obligated to sit there till 10 o'clock because
Right.
someone couldn't make it till 9:45. that we're sitting there for 45 minutes with no
Wow.
one speaking.
Oh,
I hear you, yeah.
We'll go till,
Yeah,
we
but-
go till everybody finishes, or no later than 10. Yeah, no later than 10.
Or if someone can't make it, let us know ahead of time, and we could put that out there, and I think,
Well,
if we're
going
saying
to-
7 to 10.
We'll go to a bigger venue because we're expecting more people. And now you're talking about the fact that we're gonna close down early. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Joe, just like our meetings, we have to start them at 7:30, and if we finish closed session, we can't come out here and get started at 6:45. I don't want to have to be sitting, if everyone who wants to show up at that meeting is there by 9 o'clock and has spoken, and then because we said we're gonna be here till 10 o'clock, that we're sitting there waiting for someone who shows up at 10:45.
Okay, and the other side of the coin is, in those 3 hours, we can accommodate 60 people. What if we have 95 who wanna speak?
That's
And they're here,
I propose we change that to 2 minutes instead of 3.
I do too.
For that particular session. So that we do have the opportunity to hear from more people.
but you're not taking into you're not gonna consider another night, it's gonna be done this night.
We may, depends on how many show up and what happens.
I'd like
I would be open to another night.
Yeah, I would be open to another night as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would just like to consider the one night and go from there.
exactly.
All right?
In 2 minutes.
Throwing that out as a suggestion.
I like it.
Hey, Mr. Chair, what do we have?
You got 2 minutes
How
on the
much-
table, is what you got.
No, okay, I mean, all together.
Oh, all
I
together?
thought there was kind of a consensus of the 2 minutes.
We're caught between the rock and the hard place because there's people who have complained about the fact that they never get a chance to talk because too many people, and there's other people who say, well, 2 minutes isn't gonna be enough for me to say what I wanna say. So,
Well, we
I've
have,
been caught in a situation where I'd like to say a whole lot, but I only have a certain amount of
Exactly.
time. So I make what I want to know heard in that
I,
period of
I
time.
agree.
So we'll limit it to 2 minutes. So, it's Monday,
November 12th.
November 12th. We will begin at 7 p.m. We will no longer than 10 p.m. and it will be at Christiansburg High School. And it will be, each speaker will have 2 minutes to make their point. Agreed? Okay.
Now, one of the things we did when we were making some decisions about relocation for our students that summer of 2010 was we also provided a form that people could put written input on if they didn't want to speak. And I think I'll create a little half-pager that people
idea.
could
that'd be good.
put a written idea on if they wanted to.
Excellent.
Any other comments or questions about the budget process, of the budget calendar, I'm sorry? Hearing none, we'll move to unfinished business. Anybody have? Uh-huh. Was that an action?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at, it was an action. So, someone needs to, do we have a motion? Did someone make a motion? No, sir. Okay. So we need a motion on the table that we're gonna meet on Monday, the 12th of November, beginning at 7, not to exceed 10 p.m.
Mr. Jones. The motion is for the budget calendar as a whole. You've come to a consensus about the meeting on Monday, November 12th, and that's
Okay.
it. But the
So that'll be-
action item is for the entire budget calendar.
Gotcha.
From now until the budget's
Thank you for that clarification.
And I'd like to go back to that meeting and the actual material that we would provide to the public about the cuts that I discussed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I said how I would hope that we could have that list provided to the public, and I'd like, as a board, to talk about if there's things that we want to take totally off that list, and more details for each of those items.
So do we want to do that at the next meeting or the November 6th meeting?
And we can't do it now with the list that we have already from the budget presentation. At least start with that list. Like, for example, the school closings.
might be wrong, but my assumption for this meeting is just for anybody and everything who might want to come and speak about budget.
Exactly.
Not proposing this certain list. I understand that's a thing to go on for information, but this meeting I'm looking at as, and maybe I'm wrong, as just anybody for anything that wants to
We could
come.
definitely do that, but also we could provide them information, since we are providing the budget discussion early, to benefit the discussion, basically.
And put the concerns out there, put the issue, what we may have to cut if we don't get the money, that kind of thing.
That's what this list is.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you're suggesting more detail found on the list, or?
More detailed,
Yeah.
plus are there things that are being suggested
Might
that
be.
we would like to take off the
Yeah.
table?
Well, I mean,
me-
for me personally, no, there's nothing on this list yet that I'm ready to take off.
Amen.
Because the list is options, it's not recommendations.
Right.
I've not made any recommendations. I've never made a recommendation, on any of the things here. And, you know, we still have a long way to go with, understanding where we're at.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't know what kind of funding.
Financially.
you know,
Well, and I would rather see it on this list and give people an opportunity to speak than to find out 3 months from now it has to be cut.
Right.
And we didn't give people the opportunity to speak about it.
Exactly.
Okay, well then, if that's true, I have some specific questions for the school closure item that I'd like answered for future meetings. The first one is the explanation as to why we put the specific ones on the list. I know we've talked about, for example, Bellevue and Harding, how their numbers would fit into Price's Fork, but I'd like the more detailed on that explanation. And the number that we put with those schools, I believe in our discussion, was more based on the number of teaching positions or administrators, the cost related to that, but not related to other expenses. So I'd just like to understand that number a little bit better.
There was a chart that was created and
Yeah.
shared last year, and it's basically the major cost savings is the overhead staff. So like the principal, the guidance counselor, the media specialist, one admin assistant, you would not have to have those positions if they were merged into another school, regardless of whether it be Bellevue to, Price's Fork, or Harding to Price's Fork, or anywhere. It's the manpower piece, because we have elementary schools in Montgomery County that operate with 500 students and one media specialist, whereas you have a small school that has 250 or 275 kids, and you still have one media specialist. So the cost savings is almost all in people. And the other thing that people don't understand is that it doesn't mean anybody loses a job. We have reduced probably 40 plus 35, we've reduced 75 positions more or less since I've been here, which is 2.5 years, and nobody has lost a job. Everybody has been absorbed through attrition. They might be in a different place, but they're working, and it is a comparable job. So that's a difference too.
So I think just that explanation would be nice to have on the website with us, that we've already created with that chart. And then also thinking about the chart that we've been given with the 2021 projections, which I've been told are good planning projections that they have been in the past with the school system, and how we would justify, if we close some of these schools, what would happen in 2021 in that planning wise. How would we handle, for example, Bellevue's capacity is 222, but this projection is telling us that it would have 249, and same thing for Price's Fork and Harding. When you look at their numbers way out, I just think we need to look at the future when we're thinking about this.
Well, a lot of people are assuming that if you close a school, it's closed forever. And, there's no, doesn't mean that it's closed forever. If you take care of the building is fully capable of being reopened. So I think you've probably been getting a lot of the same emails that I've been getting, and some of the requests in there are reasonable for information, and some of them require, you know, just supposition and assumption, and they're hypotheticals, and, you know, I think
I'm not gonna get into the real estate value
No,
and
no,
all
no,
that kind of
no.
stuff.
But-
That's community.
But I'm
And
happy to
the-
answer the ones that have factual answers to them.
But the real issue that we might want to bring up again is student projection over the next 10 to 20 years. And I personally am shocked that we're not going to have the great influx and increase, and also to share with the community where this growth is projected to take place. And that was very interesting information to me, and I think it would be helpful to have. Would that be possible?
Well, I have to say,
dig that
you know,
up?
I think we've got to be careful about maintaining our focus. This is a focus on economics.
That's correct.
If you have to lose money, how are you going to fill the gap? And, you know, all that information from the redistricting studies and all that stuff is out there for anybody who wants to go ferret it out. But I don't think it has a real impact on the immediate decision if you find yourself having to fill this gap. I would not bring you a recommendation to close any school in this county permanently. If I were ever to bring you a recommendation, which I have not, it was on a list of all kinds
Absolutely.
of options, I would bring you a recommendation to preserve the building for the future use of the division. And, you know, you're in a crisis. We've talked about it before. I've never seen an economic downturn that lasted this long. So, you know, it's an unusual and unique situation. So I just think we need to keep the focus on the economics that are driving this instead of, you know, trying to get too far out. And information is out there. You have to take the time and, you know, be a little tenacious about finding it, or give us a call or drop us an email and say, where would I find that? And we'll answer it, instead of us creating a book this thick of
No, I wouldn't
information to
recommend that.
support that discussion.
No.
I can do some quick overview kind of definitions that flesh this out a little bit, but the actual detail, you wouldn't do that until you told me to close the school.
No, but the projection of student population is very available, could be put on
Oh,
the
yeah,
web.
it is
That's
on the
very,
web.
yeah.
It's on the web.
Okay, it's on the web, okay.
You just have to look for it.
You're talking about the economic downturn, but I think we have to remember that our state is 7th wealthiest in the nation. And I would, under new business, I've got an idea, so, anyway.
I understand where you're coming from and agree with you. I'm struggling with my own priorities, and when I look at this list, and, you know, because my own priorities are going to make the list bigger, you know, because one of the things that we have got to do is address the employee compensation thing, and that's a major priority for me. I think the other thing that we don't realize is that early in the budget process, when you mentioned about the VRS, you know, that's a 1%.
Yes.
Okay? So which means that we still have 3 more cents that we have to fund. And we
Right.
were one of the few school divisions that didn't fully fund it.
That's right.
35% is
Okay.
not fully funded, 65% fully funded.
So, you know, that's a 5-year process that's
Right.
going to cost us year after year.
You're right.
So, I mean, I think there needs to be some discussion around, do you bite the bullet and do it all, and let's get it over, pardon the term, get it over with, or do we continue to do it incrementally, you know, maybe in the long term? But you know, we talk about all the great things that our schools are doing and all the great things that the division is doing. But if we don't start investing in the human capital, which is the teachers, okay, all of these awards are not going to happen. And we're going to start to see a
That's right.
revolving door as things go on, as
That's
the other school divisions, because was it Roanoke County or city that gave raises this past year versus the options we have here to raise money, and my brain is crashing as that happens. You know, it's difficult, and I'm eager to hear. You know, I think that those things need to be put out there in the public as well, about salaries, about the insurance, about not being competitive as part of that.
Yeah, like details underneath.
Yeah, with the details of that.
I guess that with the teacher to student ratio, it's easy for, I think, the public and myself to picture how that affects like elementary education, but more explanation about how that affects secondary is, would be helpful too, to understand like, you know, you're gonna have a whole less section of chemistry offered or things like that, because you don't see it as well as just you have a couple of extra kids in your third grade classroom. And those are information that the public should understand too.
And it may not
That's
be
good.
that you have a section
Yeah.
eliminated, it's that you just have more kids crammed into
Right.
science labs.
You need to, but there's also like OSHA requirements that you can only go 25 or whatever in a science class. So you may just not have that many offered.
So, I guess, do you have any direction? Because I'm searching for work to help you here. I know we're going to meet, I think maybe between now and the 10th of November, if you can work on what that presentation and information would look like that we're going to have out there. Is there going to be kind of an opening to the thing? No? Because I remember one of them, we had kind of a opening.
I'm gonna stage it, you know, with, when we did the movements, you know, I made a few opening comments. But other than that, I wouldn't see it. You know, I need to get a list. How about, when is our next meeting? November the what?
6th.
How about if I, in the meantime, put together a list that I provide to you all, and we be prepared on the 6th to try to reach some kind of agreement if there are things to come off the list.
And why don't we go ahead and list what our priorities are now? Okay, we've usually waited, but go ahead and send the superintendent what you consider to be your priorities for this upcoming budget year. I mean, I know what, in my mind, what the priorities are and what I think we need to work on. And so I think this board can help the superintendent by going ahead and saying, let's give our priorities earlier. Let's do it now.
And maybe have a chart that has these, I know they're just estimates, but these items that show the 150,000, the different numbers, so that we can do some give and take of number game.
I think I've got quite a few of them in the Q&A already, but I'd be happy to try to put it together
On the website, Q&A?
for this board to work with on that next meeting. Many of the pieces of information are already out on
Yeah.
the website. It's just a matter of collecting them into a
yeah.
chart.
Okay, are we ready to move to unfinished business?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jones.
Did we not finish our motion? We didn't do it, did we?
We don't have a motion at all.
We don't have a motion at all.
What are we making a motion?
And see what happens when you get late. All right. Will you, it's on the budget. We just need to go ahead and make a motion to approve the budget calendar as presented with the modifications that we've talked about.
So moved.
Second.
There it is.
Any further discussion? My apologies. All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? You have a budget calendar. Thank you for reminding me. Unfinished business by school board members.
I have to bring up that I was in error. The school I was talking about at our last meeting was Independent Secondary, not Rivendell, with no library, no cafeteria, computer lab in the social studies classroom, no gym. And I just wanted to share that I'd made the mistake. But I'm very concerned about our students at Independent Secondary and hoping that that has been put into our plan to move that school somehow. Any thoughts, Ms. Blackburn?
Not tonight.
Okay. Well, I had suggested, I would hope that that would be included in any master plan.
It's capital.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we'll come back to a capital discussion
Yeah,
again.
okay.
But I knew which one you were talking about.
Thank
told
you.
me.
Yeah. I told you after. And my other question is about the college career and planning site that we have, which is great. And I want to know, though, how we get to the families who don't have a computer at home or wouldn't know to go to the computer at home.
We have a whole communications plan. I've included the communication plan in your board update. And, you know, we're literally blitzing the schools and the parents and the families with the information. So it's there, and we're getting really good reviews from folks who have taken the time to take a look at the college and career ready information on the website.
Oh, yeah.
Very well done.
Yeah, my concern is that, people sitting around this table would certainly be looking, and I thought it was great. But I'm very concerned about the families that may not be getting there. And I don't know.
And I hope that that's what our guidance counselors are really taking an aggressive approach to doing. That's the role I think that our school guidance counselors play, is identifying those students that are going to need that extra push or need that extra bit of information, and how they're going to be able to fill that gap that they don't,
Right.
technology gap that may exist there. That's the role I see.
Could your hope be made into a suggestion to Ms. Blackburn to share that concern and hope with our guidance people?
We are doing it.
Okay.
We're doing it.
The guidance people are reaching out to the
Guidance
families.
people are reaching out to the families.
Thank you. Cool.
Any items of unfinished school board business?
I would like to talk about the custodial services RFP and just the amount of time. We're talking about all the things that are going to take place in summer of 2013, but we're asking the superintendent and her staff to provide an awful lot of information now, and we're also asking them to look at these custodial services RFP, make some recommendations there. So before she spends a lot of time on that, I just need to make sure that that is the direction this board wants her to go into, because if she's spending hundreds of hours doing that, and that's not the direction of this board, it really makes no sense. She can use her time doing something more valuable.
So can you give us an update there, Ms. Blackburn, on the latest?
I can.
Okay.
Actually, the last time we talked about it in the boardroom, the board agreed that we would continue with the process to put out the RFP. We developed it, we put it out, we had 15 responders, they responded. We have collected preliminary data. We have also talked with other school divisions who have used custodial outsourcing or other kinds of outsourcing, and have some pros and cons. And I'm happy to briefly share the pros and cons if you'd like. The pros are, if you get the right contractor and the proper contract requirements, you'll be able to maintain standards and save money. The contractor shifts some of the burden for cleaning buildings from the administrator, because right now your school principals frequently have oversight for building cleanliness, and that would in general not be the case if you had a contractor. A contractor performs their own interviews, follows their own hiring processes, is responsible for background requests, and may also include drug screenings for employees. A contractor may reduce the workload for the Human Resources Department of the school division for hiring and personnel administration. A contractor provides a uniform system of cleaning and uses common training. A contractor often has access to other in-house company resources for things like OSHA and safety procedures. A contractor can generally provide new and comparable equipment for all buildings. A contractor may be able to provide quality supplies at a cheaper price because of volume purchasing. A contractor has a high expectation for productivity, and that results in a timely manner. Contracted services may free up labor spent in other areas of school operations and supporting custodial, such as administrative assistant for facilities, warehouse facilities, human resources. What are some of the cons? The initial transition can create anxiety and be difficult. There can be some loss of control and flexibility by the school division over the personnel and the operations. The workforce may not be as loyal to the school system. There can be lower wages and benefits for employees in some cases, but wages may be higher, but the level of benefits may be reduced or different. If a service is not included in the contract price and the school division decided that they wanted it, then we'd have to pay extra for it. If the contractor owns and supplies all the equipment, there would be a large capital cost to cancel the contract, and it would also be prohibitive to a school division to go back into that business once you didn't have the equipment. The school division remains responsible for the cleanliness and operation of the building, but you have less direct control over resources. So those are some of the pros and cons that we found. And so we're basically at a position now that if it were the desire of this board, we would go to the next step, which is to create a committee that would review those RFPs additionally for more detail, because you get them at a high level initially, and reduce the number from the 15 who originally submitted an RFP down to a smaller number that would be involved in face-to-face interviews. So that's where we are.
Well, I'll just restate my position. I have absolute no interest in reviewing that information.
I don't either.
And I agree.
I think it's a waste of time for our school division to be looking at that with all the other issues that we have going on.
And it could be that the savings is not the savings that we want it to be. We will lose control of what's going on in the building. Loyal employees could lose money. They could be asked to work longer hours for the same or less pay with less support. Just because the contractor is outside does not mean, with one of the pros here, that they're going to bring in new state-of-the-art equipment. They could be bringing in junk for our people to have to use and still clean the buildings the way we expect it to be. And then if they're not, then we're going to have to dealing with their management as to why it's not going to happen. And quite frankly, my experience is when the equipment's not working and you're doing the best you can, and management is saying, well, you need to do better with junk, that's a big concern for me, because I work in environments like that. We worked very hard when I first came on this board to be able to pay our custodians to stay, because it was a revolving door. To be able to compensate our part-time employees with some types of benefits as far as their options to do health care, retirement, or just to be able to help sustain their families. They've become a part of the buildings, a part of those communities, and it's just wrong. I mean, when we have the list of the years that folks have been in the buildings, some may be 2 or 3, 5, others 30, 20. Well, they had to start with 1 or 2 or 5 to get to those 30, and they stayed with us. And I'd hate to throw those folks away too, just because we've got to save a little money, because I don't believe we will. I think the morale will be awful. In my plant, we lost half the workforce, and now we work longer and harder to make up for the folks who are not in the building. And I believe that's one of the things that will happen with this. People will be cut. Anyway, I'll stop.
No, I appreciate everything you said, and I am with my friends here. What I've been hearing from parents whose children have been through the system is how important custodians were to their children. They were mentors, they were there for them, they were part of the system in a way that I think outsourcing wouldn't be the same. I think that it would change the feeling of our schools from what we have. And a couple people at Virginia Tech have told me they outsourced, and it got us down to just say, day after day, we don't have our plastic bags changed. The people don't care. I've heard that from tech people, and I just am having a hard time with the whole concept, because these people are just such a part of our school. Same with cafeteria people.
Board members, anybody else, questions, comments?
I have 2 questions. Why are we doing this separately from the county? It seems to me that part of the problem, we've had custodians leave our buildings and go to the county. Isn't that correct? Because they pay more money?
I take exception to that. We had one employee who recently left and went to the county and got an increase in pay. But if you look at custodian to custodian in
Is it about the same?
in the school system and in the county, you're going to find some that are paid higher in the county and some that are paid higher in the school system. It just depends. So there's not a blanket statement that you could make that says one pays better than the other. Actually, custodians are compensated in Montgomery County with average $18,000 salary and about an $8,000 health insurance benefits package and $2,000 in VRS contributions and 12 paid holidays and exactly the same sick and vacation leave earning requirements that other 12-month employees have. So it is an appropriate benefit and compensation package.
Okay, I take exception, and I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I thought there was, but the question is, we're moving to the same building with the county, and we're trying to coordinate in many different ways. And do they have any intent on looking at this at all?
We have intention to look at a number of ways to do shared services. Custodial has not necessarily been one of the topics, but certainly it can be. We're going to look at grounds and maintenance, and we're going to look at some finance pieces.
But that hasn't happened yet.
We haven't moved yet either.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
we could also look at supplies,
Right.
maybe.
Well, the other,
Would that be possible?
the other question I have is I'm hearing about custodians who have been such a impact on students, yet I look at the list of custodians here, and I'm seeing that we lose about 10 to 15% a year, or we did last year anyway, or we did from July, yeah, it was a year, and we've got over 60 custodians who have less than 10 years or less experience, and we only have 13 with over 20 years experience. And I guess I'm thinking, is there a big turnover, or?
Can I make a comment to that? I think you answered that question with the 18,000 a year. We talk about people going to other areas and our employees making 35 and 40,000 a year and 45,000 a year. Why would you not think someone only making 20,000 a year wouldn't also have to entertain the idea to work in another area? I think if we're going to look at anybody, having raises as well, I think we need to look at that group as well, because that's like bare minimum.
You have turnover in every facet of the organization, and you're going to, and if you looked at other comparables, you'd find the same thing. Generally, you'll lose approximately 80 teachers in the summertime.
Yeah.
But you lose them for lots of reasons. You lose them because the spouse leaves. Same thing with custodians. You lose them because they go back to take care of an elderly parent. It's not unusual to have turnover. I don't think that the turnover rate in our custodial positions is excessive. Yes, we have turnover, but I don't think it's excessive.
My point is that we have over 60 who have 10 years or less, and only 13 who have 20 years or more. And my point is, this isn't the way to run a shop. And I mentioned at one of the meetings we had with the supervisors, and indicated that we had many of our custodians who were living in a level of poverty. And I don't know if we outsource this program, if that's going to help it at all. I'm thinking that
I'm thinking no.
yeah, there's a whole lot of no's in there. And I'm thinking, but what can we do? How can we solve this problem within? And I don't have an answer for that, because there's.
I would like to, if I can tag on to
Sure,
that.
go ahead.
I thought a lot about this, and, one of the things that came to mind was many of us who reflect back when we were in elementary school. Do you remember who the
Absolutely.
custodial was?
I do too. And the bus driver and the cafeteria workers.
It doesn't really matter how long they've been with the division. You do remember who they are, even if it was for 1 year. And we're a people organization. We talk about being a people organization and that people should come first. And I think with everything that we've got on our plate right now, that impacting people at the level we're talking about impacting is just not right at this time. We've got too many other things to be focused on and moving on. So I am not interested in moving forward with this. I think that we need to focus on these critical few, and if it comes down at budget time that we gotta find some extra money, then, you know, we'll figure it out. But 3 or 4 years from now, you know, we might have to look at outsourcing. I would like, on Mr. Ivers did bring up a good point. I do think it may be an opportunity to look at how we can start to shared services with the county and begin that discussion and seeing how we can work together with the county and seeing if there's any opportunities there. But based on what I've read and seen and in my experience in industry and with other things, you just, they do more than just empty trash cans too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
They help teachers carry things to the car, out to the car, back to the car. They help kids do different things during the day. So, you know, I don't like the term that we're using. I don't like the perception that we have of these people who are contribute daily to the job, because I can guarantee you when you walk in and that trash can's not empty, you notice it. You notice it first thing when you walk in. So, you know, this is not a second-class citizenship we're talking about here.
Yes, right, thank you.
So do we need a motion?
No, the last statement I wanted to make, yielded, was I want to see this turn around. I don't want to see over 60 people with 10 or less year experience. I want to see over 60 people with between 20 and 30 years experience, which means they're staying, they're happy, and things are looking up. And right now, this doesn't show me that things are looking up at all. And we need to
Outsourcing won't, and another point on outsourcing is that we're given a price today, but that could just keep going up, and we have no control over it. That's another issue that.
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion?
I think there's 2 more people who haven't spoken yet.
Any comments?
No comment. Where's Mr. King at? I see him raising his hand back there.
No.
We need a motion to direct the superintendent not to do anything.
Because my direction is not just this RFP, it's for all the outsourcing.
All the outsourcing RFP.
For those RFPs that you have already put on the street, there will need to be an official notification to them that they're being withdrawn, and there's only one right now, Madam
There's only
Superintendent.
one.
So there has to be a formal notification to those who have submitted proposals that the board has elected not to pursue them anymore. So I think it would be fair game to give a motion to the superintendent. I keep trying to make you the chairperson tonight. I apologize, Madam Superintendent. But yes, I think it would be appropriate to have a motion for that and then a consensus on the others.
Just chairs.
Just
And Joe,
So you want to make the motion, Ms. Foster, please?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we withdraw the custodial RFP and also that we do not produce any more RFPs for any of outsourcing, including nurses, whatever else was on the list, transportation, food services, any of those, you know.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I was just going to make a comment, Joe, even though I'm sure he's very, very young when he started, but the custodian when I was in high school was here tonight. So I'm sure he was a very young man when he was there, but he is here tonight.
Since this is dealing with an RFP, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this, please.
Can I make a comment before
Take
you
your
vote?
time, Brenda.
We're still in discussion. Go ahead.
I would just like to comment 2 things, because I do think it's important to know that, you know, the reason the RFPs were being pursued anyway was an economics issue. It's never been anything more than that. and it was approved as a part of the 2012-2013 budget that staff would begin that study. There are a number of studies there, so I would certainly want the board to look at the others and see if there are others that don't look as good now that you're 6 months away from them, as they did when we were desperately trying to cut $4.2 million from our budget. So it was done with the board's authorization.
Yes, it
And the
was.
second thing is, you know, I have to always go back to this. In tough economic times, you really have to look at your core mission. And there are a lot of people who support core mission in Montgomery County schools. But the core mission is teaching and learning in a safe environment. And, you know, some of these things that were on the RFP list were made because of the fact that we really have had our core mission threatened.
Yes.
And that's what economics does to organizations, especially the kind of economic downturn that we have experienced over the last few years. So I did just want to make those points.
And,
I think it's important.
and thank you for that. I also don't want you to think that we don't value the work that you put into this, because I know you put a great deal of
Amen.
work into it, and Mr. Shan as well. I know that there was a significant amount of work by your staff and by you as far as looking at this, and certainly we appreciate that effort and the information that we received. But I think it, you know, as you begin to think about it in a long-term way, we've got a lot of things going on, and let's hope we never have to get to that level. Let's hope we're able to do some other things.
I think we had to see this, though. I think you're right. Yeah.
Call the question.
Are you ready?
Call the question.
All right, roll call.
Ms. Albrecht.
Aye.
Ms. Bond. Yes. Ms. Foster.
Yes.
Ms. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Ryder.
Yes.
Ms. Woolsey.
No.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Bear with me just a second. Any other items of unfinished business? Items of new business?
I would like to suggest, Mr. Chair, that after the election, as soon as possible, that we meet with our House of Representatives person, possibly with other school districts, some other school district, school boards in the area. With the sequestration that several of us have heard about, learned about, studied, I would very much like for us to meet with whomever is elected before January if possible.
Well, I believe the superintendent sent out an email, did you not, about take your legislator?
Yeah.
And that's occurring in November, and throwed out some dates.
Would that include our national legislature?
No, it's
No.
only the local.
That's
but-
what I thought.
But I did, you know, I will do the sequestration resolution. I'll get it to all the right places, and I have
Right.
already done a letter.
Well, I think that's very different from meeting with the person, and whomever is elected to the House, I would really like for us to meet with that person and possibly invite some other local school board members if they'd like to join us. We have not, I don't think, done that in recent years. Have you done that in the past, meet with House of Rep person?
No.
And this is big. Sequestration is big. And
So are you suggesting that all of us meet with?
those of us that would like to have it be an official meeting, people don't want to meet with the person, that's fine too, but I would really like to invite the person to come, maybe invite other, I mean, see who else we might want to invite, but certainly start with us. I think it's important for us to meet with them. I really do.
Well, right now, November is filling up very fast.
Yes.
And we're gonna do the
Could be.
local ones, so,
Could be into early December.
or, yeah,
I mean, I would at least like to put that on the table as, do you need a motion?
no, I just
No.
need to, I think the superintendent needs some direction to get some data, maybe, I mean, we don't know who it's going to be until after
No, we
the
don't.
election.
Exactly.
So, you know, maybe after the election, we can bring that back up and,
Fine.
and start looking at it then.
I mean,
Um,
I think they should, well, it will be a he, should talk with us in person and know where we're coming from. It's very important, I think. What they're doing, if it continues with public education, is horrific.
I've kind of,
Unfinished business.
I've kind of mixed feelings about that. Primarily, what we're doing is we're giving the superintendent another chore to do, which I'm not happy with. If
A chore in what sense?
in organizing what you just wanted to have organized. And I
Well,
think,
I'd be glad to do it if she wants me
well,
to.
my point is that, exactly that.
Yeah.
I think if we want to do that, I think
Yeah.
we should do it.
I'd be
And I
happy
don't
to.
think it should be a job for the superintendent.
I'd be happy to.
Items of new business.
Yeah,
Do we want to, go ahead.
I have 3 pieces of paper here, 4, but there's 3. One is phone numbers and positions here and, not here, but at the school board office. There's a lot of people who have changed, and I have no idea what changes have been made. And plus, a public school directory is not up to date. Plus, I received this in 2/11, and I haven't seen one since. The PTO presidents of each school. Can we get that? Is that,
If you're asking for it, I have it.
okay, yeah.
I mean,
If you already
I
have it,
wouldn't
is it?
routinely send that to you unless you ask me.
Okay, thank you. I would,
And it's also available on the website.
yeah.
If you
But
go to the website.
I like to keep it by my phone, and my computer isn't fit by my phone.
You can make a
You know
copy
those-
off the website.
You
Jim.
know those little cards that I give you?
Thank you.
Those little laminated cards?
I have that, yeah.
It's got almost everybody on it that's a leadership, but I'll give you the internal one also.
Just like the principals and assistant principals have
It's got
changed
it.
in so many schools.
Okay. It's on that card.
Thank
that
you.
laminated card. But I'll give you those copies also.
Thank you.
School tours.
I'm excited about that. I love seeing the pictures and how much everything's progressing. That's just really exciting. So let's schedule it.
Then how about if I just send some dates and you all can sign up? It's going to be from 5 to 6. We'll do it 2 consecutive weeks. I think it's October 23rd through something, and then the next week we'll pick the same days and send you the dates, and you all sign up, and we'll monitor, making sure we only have 2 of you at a time. And I thought I would likewise extend the invitation to the Board of Supervisors if that's acceptable with
Yeah.
the school board.
Fine by me.
Okay.
I have one item. I wondered about Kelly Pleasant's resolution that she presented. If we could just get some more information on what she's talking about with the different positions.
I'll be glad to. You will also, I suspect that you'll have your NSBA will take or VSBA will take a position, and Virginia Association of School Administrators may very well. I'll share all that as it comes my way, and I suspect you'll have some discussion at Williamsburg as well on that topic. It's a very high-level topic this year.
So can we have that as an agenda item in our,
For November 6th.
no, because then we won't have everybody else's input.
Oh, you want it after BSBA?
Right.
Oh, okay, okay.
And after you were able to gather your information.
Okay. Gotcha. Other items of new business by school board members? Announcements and information by school board members?
Well, I was just curious to know, and you know me with my computer not, activities at the schools, is that on here somewhere? On this agenda? Pardon?
The monthly calendar?
The monthly calendar?
It's at the first meeting of the month, so you need to
Oh.
see the agenda for the first meeting of the month. I'm so sorry.
It's only once a month.
Bad
Okay.
return, yes.
That's okay. Thank you. And then I also congratulate Dan and everybody that has worked on this Montgomery County getting the 2012 VSBA Certified Green School Division Award. That is really big, and I hope all of you that are going to the school board convention are going to be wearing very proud something. It's just really awesome. I'm really excited. And thank you, thank you.
Any other announcements or information? Next item is agenda preparation. You see when you have the next agenda item. It'll be November 6th, 2012. And with that, I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourned.
Wow.
Thank you, community members, and thank you, board members.